Ma'am, you need to move along now. You're making other patients uncomfortable with all that noise. The emergency room nurse's words sliced through the busy hospital waiting area as 52-year-old Elena Martinez clutches her chest, struggling to breathe after collapsing in the parking lot. Around her, other patients stare and whisper while she sits hunched over in the plastic chair, her worn jacket hiding the small pin that would change everything if anyone bothered to look closely enough. But what happens next will leave you speechless. If you believe our veterans deserve better treatment, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments, have you ever witnessed someone being judged before their story was known? This one will stay with you long after the video ends. Elena had been waiting for over 2 hours now. What started as sharp chest pains while grocery shopping had gotten worse, forcing her to drive herself to the nearest emergency room. The parking lot walk had been torture, each step making her feel like someone was squeezing her heart in a vice. But inside the hospital, things went from bad to worse. The triage nurse barely looked up when Elena approached the desk, explaining her symptoms through labored breathing. The woman's eyes quickly scanned Elena's appearance. The faded jeans, the old sneakers, the worn military surplus jacket that had seen better days. Without insurance cards readily available and speaking with a slight accent from her childhood in Puerto Rico, Elena was immediately categorized. Low priority. Probably nothing serious, maybe even drug-seeking. "Look, lady, we've got real emergencies here," the nurse had said, pointing to a crowded waiting room. "Take a seat and we'll get to you when we can." That was 2 hours ago. Now Elena's breathing was getting worse. She tried to stay quiet, but small gasps and whimpers escaped as the pain spread across her chest and down her left arm. The classic signs were all there, but in this busy urban hospital, she had become invisible. The same nurse from earlier approached again, this time with backup, a security guard and what appeared to be a supervisor. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to either calm down or we'll have to ask you to leave," the supervisor said loudly enough for half the waiting room to hear. "You're disrupting other patients." Elena tried to explain again. "Please, something's really wrong. My chest, it feels like it's on fire. I can barely breathe." The security guard stepped closer. "Look, we see this all the time. People come in here trying to get pain medication, making a big scene. If you don't have proper insurance or identification, maybe you should try the free clinic across town." Other patients were now openly staring. Some looked sympathetic, but others nodded in agreement with the staff. Elena could hear the whispers starting. "Probably homeless. Definitely looks like trouble. Why don't they just remove her already?" A well-dressed woman with her teenage daughter moved seats to get further away from Elena. She spoke loudly to her daughter, making sure everyone could hear. "This is exactly what's wrong with healthcare today. People who don't belong here taking up resources from people who actually need them." Elena felt tears welling up in her eyes, but not from the physical pain anymore. This was a different kind of hurt, one she had hoped she would never experience again after everything she had been through. The supervisor was losing patience. "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask again. Either sit quietly and wait your turn like everyone else, or we're going to have to escort you out. We have real patients with real emergencies." "But I'm having a real emergency," Elena managed to say between shallow breaths. "Please just look at me. Really look at me." The nurse rolled her eyes. "We've looked at you plenty. You're not showing any obvious signs of distress. Your vitals from earlier were slightly elevated, but nothing concerning. You've been sitting here just fine for 2 hours." "Because I'm trained to handle pain," Elena whispered, but her words were lost in the noise of the busy emergency room. The teenager with her mother spoke up. "Mom, why don't they just kick her out? She's obviously faking it for attention." Her mother nodded approvingly. "Exactly. This is what happens when people don't take responsibility for their lives. Look at her. No insurance, probably no job, and now she's everyone else's problem." The security guard was reaching for his radio when Eleanor tried one more time. She reached into her jacket pocket with shaking fingers, trying to find something that might help. But the movement was seen as potentially threatening. "Hands where we can see them," the guard barked. "Don't reach for anything. I'm just trying to show you something," Elena gasped. "Something that might help you understand." More patients were gathering now, some standing up to get a better look at the drama unfolding. The waiting room had turned into a spectacle, with Elena at the center of everyone's judgment and assumptions. A middle-aged man in a business suit joined the crowd of onlookers. "Is this really necessary?" he asked the supervisor. "Can't you just handle this privately?" But the supervisor was done with diplomacy. "No, sir, this has gone on long enough. Some people think they can come in here and demand special treatment without following proper procedures. We have protocols for a reason." Elena's vision was starting to blur around the edges. The pain in her chest was now radiating up her neck and jaw. She tried to stand but stumbled slightly, catching herself on the chair. "Now she's putting on a show," someone called out from the crowd. The nurse shook her head in disgust. "Ma'am, this is your final warning. Stop with the dramatics or we're calling the police." Elena's hand finally found what she was looking for in her jacket pocket. With tremendous effort, she managed to pull out a small worn object and place it on the chair beside her. But in all the commotion and judgment surrounding her, nobody bothered to look closely at what she had set down. The supervisor was already motioning to the security guard to begin, escorting Elena out when a new voice cut. Through the chaos, what exactly is going on here? Dr. Sarah Chen had just finished a grueling surgery and was walking through the waiting room when she noticed the commotion. Unlike the others, she approached Elena with clinical eyes, immediately noticing the grey pallor of her skin, the way she was unconsciously rubbing her left arm, and the beads of sweat on her forehead despite the cool hospital air. "This woman appears to be having a cardiac event," Dr. Chen announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. She then noticed the small object Elena had placed on the chair, a Purple Heart medal, worn smooth from years of handling. The doctor's eyes widened as she picked up the medal, reading the inscription. The waiting room fell completely silent as Dr. Chen's voice carried across the space. "Sergeant First Class Elena Martinez, Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan. Wounded in action while saving 7 members of her unit from an IED attack. This woman isn't just a patient. She's a war hero who nearly died serving our country." The silence in the waiting room was deafening. The same people who'd been calling for Elena's removal now stared in shock and shame. The well-dressed mother grabbed her daughter's hand and quickly looked away. The business suit man cleared his throat uncomfortably. The security guard stepped back, his hand falling away from his radio. Elena was now barely conscious as Dr. Chen immediately called for a wheelchair and emergency cardiac team. As they rushed her toward the treatment area, the medal fell from Dr. Chen's hand and clattered to the floor of the waiting room. The sound echoed in the silence, a metallic reminder of how quickly judgment can turn to shame, and how often we fail to see the heroes hidden among us. 3 hours later, Elena was stable in the cardiac unit. She had indeed suffered a heart attack, one that could have been fatal if Dr. Chen hadn't intervened when she did. The same nurse who had dismissed her earlier came by to check on her, unable to make eye contact. Elena survived that night, but the real question wasn't about her medical recovery. It was about how many other heroes walk among us, unrecognized and undervalued, until it's almost too late to see them for who they really are. The Purple Heart medal sat on Elena's bedside table, no longer hidden in a pocket, but displayed with the honor it had always deserved.